Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Monday Night Raw review. And you've heard the adage, finding a straw of hay in a needle stack. Well, this is like finding a few pearls in a stack of manure, because there were some real highlights to this Raw tonight, but they were really scattered throughout just a bunch of, in my opinion, garbage. And if nothing else, very tedious and boring content. There were only a few things that I was really invested in this show, but this is yet another throwaway Raw. Ashton, what'd you think of it?
Well, John, rather than describing what I think of it, I'm going to describe to our listeners the actions that we are going to take due to what we think of it. As of next year, and the only reason I'm doing this is because it's like one of those things where once you realize you don't want to get to a destination, if you're already halfway there, you're not just going to turn around and walk back to where you came from, because then it's like just a wasted effort. So we're going to just keep pounding through this thing. But as of next year, John and I are going to make this time of year our official TWitWoW off season. That being from the Monday Night Raw after SummerSlam, which we will review. It will be our last show of the regular season as it is, until the Raw after TLC, which we will also review. So it's from the Raw after SummerSlam till the Raw after TLC inclusively. We will be not doing any Raw reviews next year, as just a little bit of a test run to see if it really makes that much of a difference. We will still be doing preview predictions and live reactions for pay-per-views, and we will continue reviewing NXT, because frankly NXT's quality doesn't dip nearly as badly as Raw's does. So that's the goal going forward. And even tonight, I feel like we could say, even though we're going to be reviewing Raws for the rest of this, what will end up being an off-season next year, we're probably going to end up having a lot shorter Raw reviews this year, because I think it's gotten to the point that rather than complaining about everything and going on 15 to 20-minute rants about how much better the Raw could be, we're just going to skip over the crap.
Yeah, and given this Raw tonight, that means we'd be skipping over quite a bit, at least in my personal opinion. I'm sure you echo those sentiments. But yeah, me and Ashton talked it over. I completely agree with this new infrastructure for the show going forward into next year. Raw lately, I just think, has just been so consistently dull, and of course it is in time with football season, which is always going to generate a lot more interest. But just some things on this show tonight I thought were so heinous that I'm just like, how did this even make TV? And again,
it's funny because somebody on Reddit actually said, oh, this whole Big Show sensitivity training is really clever. It's a good way for Vince to take a shot at the NFL. And all I could say in response to that was, I'm going to be that guy who acts like the old times are better, and I'm going to say it. In 1999, the way Vince stuck it to the NFL was by whipping their asses in the ratings rather than just taking pot shots from their own crappy little show that's doing 2.5s every week.
You know what this reminds me of? Because I'm quite a reader, Ash, and I've read a lot of wrestling biographies and stuff like that. This reminds me, if that is true, if that's what Vince intends to do, this was when they were first starting to compete with WCW, and they didn't quite get it. They didn't quite have that Attitude Era, and they used to do these sketches that Eric recalls called Billionaire Ted.
Oh, yeah, with the Huckster and Nacho Man. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, just like stupid stuff like that, and you're absolutely right. How do you beat a competitor? How do you send a message? Through content. And WWE was sorely lacking throughout in compelling content. Again, there were some great...
But you know what the really, really crappy thing is, John?
What's that, bro?
For as many crap segments as they had tonight, they centered this entire show yet again around halftime of the Monday Night Football game. And the segment that happened during halftime of the Monday Night Football game, while it was offensive in a lot of different ways, and we'll get into that later, it was the highlight of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess with that said, let's get right into our first segment, Heat of the Night. And with all my bad-mouthing of the show, here's the thing. I guess I have one Heat of the Night, but I don't even know if it would be more appropriate to qualify it as a nitpick. It would have been two, but WWE saved themselves from two right at the close of the show. I mean, you want to talk about clutch. They just narrowly escaped me having two. But my one
Hang on one second, John. Can I just say, I want to guess. I'm guessing that the second one that you would have had was the lack of build-up to Hell in a Cell, and they saved that at the end of the show by announcing two matches.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so what was your first Heat of the Night then?
How WWE went about, at least on this particular night, promoting Susan G. Komen.
Okay, so that being said, my first Heat of the Night was actually going to be asking the WWE to stop insulting their fans' intelligence, and that plays right along into that. Because between the two middle-aged women breaking stunt-bought wine glasses over each other's asses, and this Joan London woman at the end of the show, and even I was going to include in my personal Heat of the Night El Torito versus the Minigator, WWE insulting their fans' intelligence is at an all-time high right now.
And see, here's the thing, Ashton, that Joan London segment, I honestly didn't mind that. I felt it was very heartfelt, and I think she really means well. And I was actually proud of the crowd for not booing her and actually cheering her and letting her have her moment.
See, but John, that's my thing. I think that if the crowd would have booed, which, I mean, it's fine whatever that they didn't, but I feel like if they would have, it wouldn't have been directed at her. It would have been directed at WWE for the very reason that I'm listing right now, for insulting their intelligence.
And I can see where you're coming from, but it would have looked so bad that I'm just glad we avoided it altogether.
Right. It would have made wrestling fans as a whole just look terrible. But.
Exactly. I mean, me and James were talking about it, and he said, dude, if they would have booed her, we would have looked like a pack of dicks. And I said, I absolutely agree. But those other two segments that you lumped together in this, dude, I completely agree, which begs the question. And this is something that came into my mind, and you know I expressed it to you, bro, and this is why I just had to make this the Heat of the Night. You know how crowds have reacted to segments like this in the past. And you know you're in New York. Brooklyn's never really been known as a smarky area, but to take the words out of your mouth, Ashton, that you told me earlier, with how they reacted to certain segments tonight, they may be entering that territory now. But, with all the rewrites that you allegedly go under before showtime, did you really think that you should have put those two women out there in front of a live crowd instead of a pre-recorded segment or a WWE.com segment? Like, it was just so stupid. It was mind-numbingly bad. I'd say even worse than the Jerry Springer segment with the Bellas, because at least that involved an actual feud, and it was comically bad. This was just cringeworthy, and I don't understand why you'd subject two women who are completely foreign to this environment in front of a live crowd like New York. It just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna disagree with any of the points you just made. So go ahead and continue with your Heat of the Night.
Well, yeah, I mean, really just, I guess, kind of, well, I mean, yeah, I said about the Susan G. Komen, because your Heat of the Night, I think, is brilliant, too. I can't wait to hear from you. But, yeah, like, just that example.
Dude, here's my thing. The Susan G. Komen thing, Susan G. Komen, let me start over. The Susan G. Komen Foundation is about as helpful at getting a cure for breast cancer as you or I. We all kind of wish it would happen. We're all really pulling for it, but at the end of the day, none of us are actually doing anything to make it happen. It's one of those things where they say that they're all about supporting breast cancer patients, and I'm sure they do, but the money that goes to them is more about spreading awareness, and not even just awareness of breast cancer, because like I said in our last episode, if you live in a society with advanced enough technology to have a television or a computer to watch Monday Night Raw on, you know about breast cancer. So the spread of breast cancer awareness is completely unnecessary at this point. Well, they're spreading awareness about the Susan G. Komen Foundation. They're literally just spreading brand awareness at this point to make more money, to pay their employees, their CEOs, their, the people that work for the Susan G. Komen Foundation. It's a completely self-perpetuating cycle, and it's becoming, over the course of years, it's becoming less and less about actually giving a crap about breast cancer and more about just looking like you give a crap about breast cancer.
I am so glad you just said what you did, because I always feel uncomfortable when I'm trying to genuinely tackle things like this.
Well, and it's uncomfortable because it's easy to look like a heel when you're calling out the cancer guys, you know? Like,
yeah, exactly.
at this point, I feel like our viewers are intelligent enough to know that I'm not saying breast cancer rules, because that's just retarded, and you know better, and you know that I know better. And unlike the WWE, I'm not going to insult our viewers' intelligence by trying to beat around the bush on stuff like this when I know that they understand what I'm saying.
Exactly. I just feel like you saw the two women get canned by the crowd. And we've seen this again with guest hosts in segments of this nature in the past. These never go over well. I mean, I'm not trying to make a generalization here, but I'm going to assume that when you're in crowds like that, it shows the facet of the wrestling fan that's very territorial. It's like somebody coming into their world trying to do something else. Like you said, it's either like a self-promotion or something else. And yeah, I mean, the term breast cancer awareness, I think you're right on point. If you're in a post-industrial country, if you're in a first world country with all the technology and things that we have at hand, you know what breast cancer is. It doesn't need awareness. It needs solutions. It needs cures. And of course we're all fighting for that. That's not the issue. The issue is how this organization, teaming up with WWE, goes about promoting itself in just really, really bad ways. Like, this segment was a complete waste of time. And I feel bad for Adam Rose having to get wrapped up in it. I mean, dude, it got so bad. It got so bad that they tried to play off like that they were going to have a real party, and they turned up the music, but that purpose for that was to drown out the booze, and it failed, because you could still hear them.
Yeah, during this segment, John, I actually had to mute my Skype because I wanted to make sure that what I was hearing was actually booze, and it wasn't just kind of like a reverb that I might have been getting from hearing your viewing of Raw on top of what I was watching. And yeah, it was pretty easy after I had muted Skype to confirm that the crowd was booing these women out of the building. And the only reason, well, maybe not the only reason, but a very, very convenient reason for why they turned the music up was because people were booing so loudly that the music helped to drown it out and make it seem like the segment wasn't so freaking awful. But at the end of the day, you know, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig, and this was freaking terrible.
Exactly. Look, I admire WWE's philanthropic efforts. You know, it's a very wealthy company. I wouldn't say billions given its recent financial straits, but, you know, very powerful, very wealthy, very well known, and it uses that to do a lot of good for a lot of causes, and I respect that. But just some of the ways they feel the need to promote said causes just leaves me scratching my head, because why here? Why on a Raw in front of live television, and why in front of a crowd like that? It was just a recipe for disaster, and you have to wonder if even they kind of knew it when they sent him out with the Rosebuds and Adam Rose, you know, like a preemptive strike, if you will. But nothing could have saved this at all. And, you know, I feel bad for those two women, but I knew it was going to be so bad, and it was, and it just led me to think, come on, guys. It's nice when you pan over to the women sitting front row. It's nice when you show us, like, a video package of, like, meeting up with people like that. You know, that's all fine, because it's all part of the cause. But when you take it to this level, it becomes a part of the product, and thus it becomes susceptible to scrutiny, and it just didn't hold up.
Completely agree. All right. Well, is that everything that you wanted to say as far as your heat of the night goes? Or
I want to give you the floor unequivocally. I want to hear what you have to say with just the insulting fans intelligence stuff. So it's all yours.
Well, yeah. As far as that's my first heat of the night. Just the idea that the WWE and really it's mostly with the Gator versus Torito thing, and that, like, I get that you were able to pull off Torito versus Hornswoggle a couple times as a pre-show thing, but you need to really, this is more about the context than the match itself, because if this match would have been on the Hell in a Cell pre-show, I probably wouldn't have complained about it. But the fact that you're putting it in the middle of a Raw is, like I said, insulting to fans' intelligence. The reason it works as a pre-show is because that's when the show is just filling in. That's when seats are filling in. That's when people are still getting their food and drinks and making sure that they have everything they need so that they can sit on their asses for the next 3 hours and not get too uncomfortable about it. But when you have this in the middle of a Raw, when everybody's already settled in, this was the ultimate piss break, if you want the truth. I mean, there is literally no reason to be invested in this match. First of all, because nobody cares about either one of the competitors in this match. But second of all, because even if we did care about one or both of these competitors, WWE hasn't given us any reason to care about who wins or loses, because there is no reason for either one of these guys to be angry at each other. They just are both animal mascots. What exactly does that make me care about?
It just amazes me that with all the talent that could use some more exposure, or hell, you know, if you wanted to do more like NXT showcases, you give time to acts like this. Now, I know
Can I just point something out?
Of course.
Fandango hasn't been on a television show since August, and yet they have this on Raw.
I don't understand it, dude. I don't understand it. Now, I will readily admit I've kind of established a history here on our podcast as being like kind of the curmudgeon when it comes to comedy acts, though lately I feel like they've kind of turned a corner with me with some things that have been produced, you know, Enzo and Big Cass and the like, you know, because NXT is just amazing. But this, again, I mean, even the crowd was chanting, so I know I'm not alone. They were chanting at this is stupid, and commentary tried to make a joke. This is what? This is what? They were probably, like, sweating under their collars thinking,
no, see, that's the thing. I don't think they heard it. I think that JBL was trying to figure out what the chants were, and he said, what are they saying? This is what? And by the time he realized what they were saying, Vince was already probably screaming in his ear, shut up, JBL, bury it, bury it, bury it.
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy, man, that these guys get time. You know, I would say Tyson Kidd is an example, but thankfully, like, he was on the show, which we'll talk about later. But there are so many other talents. You just said Fandango, Kofi Kingston, Big E, Xavier Woods, their act. I heard they might be babyfaces now. Well, why don't we unveil it? You know, give it a shot. Like, just so many mid-card acts, and you give it to this. I mean, come on. They had their moment at Extreme Rules earlier this year with the WLC match. That was when they peaked. You weren't going to top that at all. You should have left it alone. When you keep going back to the well, you know what you do to everything that preceded it? You taint it. That's exactly what you do, and that's exactly what they did here, because I never want to see these two in a ring again. I don't. It's reached that, like, John Cena, Randy Orton territory. So, not to go on any further, are there any other points?
Dude, that's my thing. Like, I could even put up with these guys being in the ring again, as long as it's nowhere but a pay-per-view pre-show where it doesn't frickin' matter.
Right.
I can deal with that. That's fine. Even if you want to put it on an episode of Superstars, I don't care. I think that the problem with stuff like this isn't necessarily what it is. It's how it's presented. If you present this as a warm-up match just to kind of keep the kids entertained because they're settled in their seats while their parents are out getting food, fine. I don't mind that if it's a pre-show and really Superstars is basically the pre-show for Raw, because if you've ever been to a live Raw over the course of the last 5 years or whenever Superstars got started, you have Superstars tapings before Raw starts. So while everybody watching at home is watching the Raw pre-show nowadays, the live crowd gets Superstars. And even if you watch the pre-show, you'll see Superstars being filmed in the background. So I can understand that, or even Main Event. Then again, main Event is also live on the network now, so it wouldn't really work out too well. So I would say if you're going to do stuff like this, keep it just keep it restricted to Superstars and or pay-per-view pre-shows, and that's it.
I just want to say something very quickly before I give you back the ball again. The thing is, this is a 3-hour program, and yep. I am not looking for WWE to be, like, absolutely 1,000% on their game every week, because that's an impossibility for even the most beloved TV shows and TV programs. Okay? But it's 3 hours. Most programs that really, like, do well or shatter glass ceilings, either the half-hour block or the hour-long block, you're talking 3 hours for one program. And it drags. And Ashton, I gotta tell you personally, I really felt this 3 hours tonight.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I don't know if I would have made it without having football to fall back on.
Absolutely. And you know, dude, like, even with Raws that I've said to you, like, that was meh, or hell, even, yeah, that was bad. Like, I've never really gone as far as to say, wow, I really felt those 3 hours, but I did here. I really felt those 3 hours. I'm like, oh God, we're in for a long night. And, you know, again, 3 hours, all the mid-card talent, again, Fandango, Big E, Kofi Kingston, Xavier, and so many others, and you choose this to carry us along those 3 hours. It's not a pleasant voyage, at all. At all. So I just wanted to stretch that out there. I'm not looking for perfection, because that's an unattainable. Okay, it's ridiculous to even talk about. I'm just looking for competence for 3 hours. That's all.
Well, I mean, dude, here's the thing. To me, perfection for Raw would really just be having something entertaining going on at all times. And in my opinion, that's not unattainable. We've seen at least something close to that in post-WrestleMania Raws. Like, it's not something that's so far out of reach that it's just so unfathomable that to even suggest that it's possible to do is outlandish. It's been close to being done. It's probably been done before. I just don't remember, but it's been close. And I don't think that it's completely unattainable.
And I can understand those sentiments. I mean, look, and I hate to keep bringing it back to this, but look at NXT, for example. Even when they have an okay episode.
There were probably as many matches on this 3-hour episode of Raw as there are on a typical NXT.
I know, right? How crazy is that? How crazy is that? Like, and what I was getting ready to say was, like, you and I, we're not hard asses in any way. Like,
No.
You and I can have our critical moments, but I don't really think you and I are that hard to please. I really don't. NXT does it on a consistent basis. And even when NXT may be a swing and a miss, and you and I just kind of shrug it off and be like, it was alright, it's still better than the last batch of 3-hour Raws that we have gotten recently. What the heck is the problem? Like, oh my God. But anyway, I don't know. You keep saying that was only like your first key to the night, the El Torito Hornswoggle. So if you have anything else to say about that, I definitely want you to get that out. But I definitely want to hear your other keys.